Midnight, Maple Glen, Colorado. The world outside was nothing but a black river, winding through the mountains, edges blurred by snow and darkness. Natalie Brooks gripped the steering wheel with trembling hands, headlights flickering over drifting snowbanks. She'd driven this stretch 1,000 times, but tonight, memory pressed in, flashes of sirens, fire, a brother's scream echoing from another winter years ago. She almost didn't see it. A sudden bloom of orange and red shattering the monotony, flames licking up from a mangled SUV just off the road's edge. Natalie's heart stuttered, panic colliding with instinct. She braked, slid sideways, and leaped from the car into the slicing cold. The air was thick with gasoline and burning rubber. Somewhere inside the inferno, a dog barked, frantic, ragged, desperate. Natalie's boots crunched through the crusted snow, her breath tearing at her chest as she skirted the blazing wreck. The cries grew louder. Pain. Terror. She hesitated, just a second. Heat blistered her face, her hands already shaking. Then she saw him, behind the fractured glass, a German shepherd, huge and wild-eyed, paws scrabbling at the window, something glinting on his collar. Adrenaline overrode fear. Natalie yanked off her jacket, wrapped it around her fist, and smashed at the window. The glass splintered, heat searing her skin as she reached in and felt fur. Hot, soaked with sweat. Trembling. The dog whimpered, body limp, bound by a cruel zip tie. She hacked at it with her pocket knife, cursing, breath sobbing in her throat. The SUV groaned, metal warping, a split-second warning before she dragged the shepherd free and they tumbled into the snow. A deafening boom ripped through the night. Shards of glass and fire rained down. Natalie shielded the dog, feeling the sting of embers on her neck. Her own hand throbbed, burnt and raw. For a long moment she just lay there, snow melting into her jeans, the dog beside her panting, sides heaving. He was enormous, battle-scarred, fur singed, eyes rimmed with terror and something else, something pleading. A tag glinted at his neck. Natalie forced herself to her knees and read it. K-9 Unit, Mia Ramirez. Natalie's mind spun. Mia Ramirez, the missing detective, the name everyone whispered about in the department, the one that haunted headlines and barroom conversations. How did her dog end up here, left to burn alive, zip-tied in the backseat of a burning car? The shepherd, Diesel she saw on a second tag, collapsed in the snow, muzzle pressed to the ground, a low, broken sound rumbling from his chest. Natalie's burned hand shook as she stroked his head. For a second, Diesel met her gaze, and she saw not just pain, but a question. Maybe the same one that was now roaring inside her. What happened to Mia? Why had someone tried to kill her dog? A pickup rattled by on the far side of the road, its headlights painting the trees yellow before vanishing. Natalie's mind snapped back to the present. She shrugged off her remaining coat, wrapped Diesel in it, and half-dragged, half-carried him to her cruiser. The adrenaline faded, replaced by icy dread. Diesel's breathing was shallow, blood staining the snow. She hit the radio, voice shaking. "Officer down. K-9 in critical. I need Dr. Emily Carter at the clinic now." The dispatcher hesitated, surprised by the urgency in her voice. "Copy. Sending Emily." Natalie floored the gas, wipers flailing as she tore through the blizzard toward town. Diesel whimpered, shivering on the passenger seat, his fur sticky with blood and melted plastic. Natalie pressed her burnt hand against her leg, trying to steady herself, but the tremor wouldn't stop. As she sped down the empty highway, memories pressed close. Her brother's face, that final night, the fire. She looked at Diesel and saw another survivor, another soul dragged from the flames, both marked by scars that would never fully heal. She didn't see the black SUV parked under the trees as she passed. A man inside, watching, taking notes. She didn't notice Diesel's ears perk up, the way his eyes tracked the shadows beyond the window, as if even now danger was following them, refusing to let them go. By the time they reached the clinic, Natalie was numb with cold and terror. She bundled Diesel in her arms and staggered through the doors, voice ragged. "Emily, help, please, he's not breathing right." Emily Carter appeared in a swirl of light and warmth, her face paling as she saw the blood and burns. "Natalie, what?" "No time. This is Mia's dog. Someone tried to burn him alive." Emily moved fast, snapping orders, laying Diesel on the table, hands gentle and sure. Natalie sank into a chair, hand throbbing, adrenaline fading to exhaustion. She watched Emily work, Diesel's shallow breaths, the snow swirling outside. In that small circle of light and fear, everything else fell away. Her past, her guilt, the unspeakable secrets that had haunted this town for years. All that mattered now was saving this dog and finding out what kind of monster wanted him dead. As Emily stitched and soothed, Natalie caught sight of Diesel's collar, stained with blood, charred but still whole. She traced the letters with her good hand. Mia's name, faded but unmistakable. The dog's eyes met hers, pleading. Natalie looked away, her own heart twisting with questions. Somewhere in the wreckage on the highway, something vital had been left unsaid. A secret, burning in the dark. And as Natalie sat there, haunted by flames and memory, she knew this night was only the beginning. Unanswered, unresolved, the big question thundered in her head. Why was Mia's dog left to die? And where, in all this darkness, was Mia Ramirez? Natalie's breath fogged the glass as she pressed her forehead to the cold window of Emily Carter's clinic, the faint glow of dawn fighting to break through the snow-heavy sky. Diesel lay on the exam table behind her, his body twitching now and then, haunted even in sleep. Emily hovered over him, her movements a blend of practiced calm and deep concern, fingers gentle as she checked vitals and cleaned wounds. The adrenaline had ebbed, leaving Natalie shaky, the pain in her burned hands sharp now that shock had faded. But she barely felt it. Her mind spun with questions and a creeping dread she couldn't name. The world outside was silent, as if the whole town was holding its breath. Emily finally stepped back, pulling off her gloves. He's stable for now. Lots of smoke inhalation, minor burns, dehydration, but he's a fighter. She looked up, eyes searching Natalie's. What happened? Natalie recounted everything, finding the burning SUV, the zip tie, the police tag, the name, Mia Ramirez. Emily's lips thinned at the mention of Mia, her childhood friend. That name had gone unspoken for months, since the night Mia vanished while working a high-profile trafficking case. As Emily bandaged Natalie's hand, the tension in the room thickened, history between the two women, pain unspoken and wounds still raw. Emily worked in silence, but Natalie caught her glances, the worry, the questions she didn't ask. Diesel whimpered softly. Emily stroked his ear, her voice a whisper. Poor boy. He's seen things no one should have to. It was then that Natalie noticed something odd about Diesel's collar. She examined it, fingers tracing the seams. Her breath caught, a tiny bulge, thread pulled loose. She fetched a pair of scissors and carefully cut open the seam. Inside, wrapped in plastic, was a small USB drive. Natalie's pulse hammered in her ears. She exchanged a look with Emily. Hope and fear all tangled up. Emily booted up her old laptop, the fan whirring loud in the quiet. She slotted the USB in, the screen flickering to life. There was a single audio file. For Natalie, or whoever finds this. Mia. Natalie's fingers shook as she hit play. Mia's voice, urgent but raw, filled the room. If you're listening, I don't know how much time I have. I'm close to blowing the lid off something big. Someone on the inside is helping them. Code name Hawk. Trust Diesel. If anything happens to me, he knows who you can trust. Don't trust the badge. Not everyone's who they say they are. The file cut off in static, replaced by the sound of Diesel barking, frantic, as if he recognized Mia's voice even now. He pawed at the laptop, whining, eyes bright with grief and longing. Natalie's own throat closed up, the echo of desperation too familiar. Emily ran the microchip scanner over Diesel's neck, frowning. Registered to K9 Unit, Officer Mia Ramirez. But the update says he's been off duty for months. Suspended pending investigation. Emily's jaw clenched. Someone tried to erase him. The implications crashed down. If Mia had trusted Diesel with this message, she must have been desperate. And if Hawk was real, a police insider, it meant anyone could be watching, anyone could be the enemy. Natalie's skin prickled as she glanced at the window, the parking lot blanketed in snow. Was someone out there right now? She remembered the strange SUV parked beneath the trees, headlights off, last night on the way to the clinic. Had she been followed? The thought made her stomach twist. Instinct told her to run, but duty, and something deeper, held her steady. Natalie opened the dog's harness for cleaning and found, tucked beneath the lining, a folded scrap of paper, stained and barely legible. Warehouse, Crest View, midnight. She showed Emily, whose eyes went wide. That's where Mia was last seen. Emily looked at Natalie, fear naked in her eyes for the first time. You can't go there alone. Natalie shook her head. No choice. Someone tried to kill Diesel. They won't stop. Mia's voice. She trusted me, or maybe just anyone who could finish what she started. Diesel struggled to his feet, still weak but determined, as if sensing the urgency. He pressed his head to Natalie's thigh, gaze unwavering. She knelt, stroking his scarred muzzle. We'll find her, she whispered, making a promise she wasn't sure she could keep. Emily handed Natalie a key. To the back entrance here. If anything goes wrong, come here. I'll make sure you're not alone. Her hand lingered on Natalie's, old memories flickering in her eyes. Be careful. And watch your back. If this hawk is real. A storm of doubt gathered in Natalie's mind, but something in Diesel's presence, the fierce loyalty, the raw grief, steeled her resolve. She left Emily to tend to Diesel and went outside, snowflakes clinging to her hair. The sun was rising now, painting the world pink and gold, but Natalie only saw the shadows lengthening across Maple Glen. She called the precinct, voice steady, asking about the fire. The dispatcher said it was logged as vehicle accident, likely arson. No mention of a canine, no mention of a survivor. Natalie hung up, bile rising. The cover-up had already begun. Inside the cruiser, she turned the USB over in her hand. Mia's words looped in her mind. Don't trust the badge. Natalie's gaze found Diesel's reflection in the rear-view mirror, eyes bright, jaw set. All right, Diesel, she murmured. Let's finish what Mia started. She drove to her apartment, Diesel at her side. Every shadow seemed deeper, every noise sharper. She checked the locks, closed the curtains. The USB and the warehouse address burned a hole in her pocket. Natalie made a list of questions, adrenaline battling exhaustion. Who is Hawk? Why was Diesel targeted? Was Mia still alive, or was this her final message? Diesel watched her, silent, loyal, never looking away. Natalie realized, for the first time in months, she didn't feel completely alone. Night would fall soon. The answers waited in the darkness. Night in Maple Glen pressed close and heavy, muffling even the wind that usually rattled Natalie's apartment windows. She sat curled on her battered couch, the room half lit by the golden glow of a lamp. Diesel sprawled nearby on an old quilt, breathing shallow, his side rising and falling as he fought the ghosts that dogged his sleep. Natalie couldn't sleep, not with everything churning in her head. She nursed her bandaged hand, the raw burn a constant reminder of the night's fire and of everything she couldn't forget. The silence felt loaded, like another question she was too scared to answer. She got up, poured herself a glass of water, and drifted to the window. The street outside was empty except for a scattering of streetlights, snow building up on the hoods of parked cars. It should have been peaceful, but her nerves danced on edge. She'd always been good under pressure, a paramedic's skill, turned cop's instinct, but trauma had its own clock. The flames she'd faced tonight called up older ones, the kind that left marks beneath the skin. She heard a soft whine. Diesel was awake, eyes luminous in the half-dark, watching her. His tail thumped weakly. He tried to stand, but pain made his back legs buckle. Natalie rushed over, dropping to her knees beside him. She stroked his ears, gentle. It's okay, buddy. I know. It's hard. Diesel pressed his nose to her palm, warm breath puffing over her wrist. She felt the jagged line of an old scar under his fur, evidence of a life spent serving, sacrificing, being brave for people who sometimes failed him. She saw herself mirrored in him, wounded but still moving forward. She whispered, voice hoarse, I lost my brother in a fire when I was 16. I was supposed to save him. Couldn't. Ever since then, every time I run toward the flames, I'm running from that night. But you... Her voice caught. Diesel licked her wrist, as if forgiving her all at once. There was something healing in his presence. The bond that formed in silence, in shared survival. She pulled a blanket over his body, careful not to touch his burns, and sat beside him, fingers lost in his thick fur. A soft knock at the door startled her. She rose quickly, heart leaping, checked the peephole. Emily's face, pale, drawn, eyes rimmed with fatigue, peered back. Natalie let her in without a word. Emily stepped inside, arms full of supplies, antibiotic ointment, clean gauze, dog treats, a small plastic key. Just in case, she said softly, pressing the key into Natalie's palm. For emergencies. Don't ask how I copied it. They worked together in silence, changing Diesel's bandages, cleaning the charred fur, murmuring gentle words. Diesel didn't flinch, didn't bark, just watched them both, quiet, as if understanding he was safe for now. The room felt smaller, more intimate, the air thick with worry and memories too big to name. When Emily left, she squeezed Natalie's shoulder. Get some rest. Call me if you see anything strange. Anything. Natalie nodded, but she knew sleep wouldn't come. Not tonight. After Emily was gone, Natalie lay down on the floor beside Diesel. The dog shifted, laying his big head across her legs. She closed her eyes, breathing in the scent of smoke, antiseptic, and dog, a mix that somehow grounded her. Hours passed in fragments. Diesel whimpered in his sleep, paws twitching, breath ragged. Natalie woke again and again to soothe him, hand on his flank, whispering comfort. She wondered what he dreamed. If he saw the flames, or remembered Mia's voice, calling him home. Around 3 a.m, Natalie sat up, restless. She reached for Diesel's harness, meaning to clean it better. As she ran her fingers through the straps, she felt something hard, wedged into the padding. She pried it free, a battered, blood-stained police badge, number barely legible, but the name was there, Mia Ramirez. Her breath left her in a rush. She stared at the badge, then at Diesel. Blood, not old, stained the back. Had Mia left it there as a clue? As a goodbye? Or was she sending a message, telling Natalie that Diesel could be trusted, that he was more than just a survivor? She pressed the badge to her chest, mind whirring. Why leave this for Natalie? What did Mia hope Diesel could do that no one else could? She looked into Diesel's eyes. He stared back, unwavering. Did she trust you with her life, Diesel? Natalie whispered. Did she trust me to help you? The question hung in the air, unanswered. Snow was falling heavier now, blurring the street outside, wrapping the world in silence. Natalie sat back, badge in one hand, Diesel's head under the other, the room awash in low yellow light. For the first time since her brother's death, she didn't feel quite so alone in the dark. Sleep came finally, brittle and light. Natalie dreamed of fire, always fire, but this time, a dog stood beside her in the flames, refusing to leave her behind. When she woke, Diesel was still there. So was the badge, and something else, an ember of hope, small and fierce, that maybe, just maybe, they could save Mia, or at least bring her story into the light. In the hush of dawn, Natalie rose, mind heavy with questions but steadier than before. She had a new partner now, one scarred by pain, but loyal beyond measure. She tucked the badge into her pocket, patted Diesel's head, and led him out into the swirling snow, following him into a world that suddenly seemed, for all its darkness, a little less empty. Natalie's boots crunched through the brittle snow as she made her way across the abandoned lot at the edge of Crest View. The warehouse district that once bustled with lumber trucks and freight, now only a shadow world of rusted steel and wind-whipped trash. Diesel moved beside her, steps slow but steady, his nose close to the ground, every muscle tense beneath his matted fur. The air was bitter, laced with the metallic tang of old oil and the distant memory of smoke. Natalie's hand gripped her flashlight tighter. This place was a graveyard of secrets, a fitting stage for her own haunted memories. She paused by the chain-link fence, breathing in the silence. Behind her, Diesel let out a low, uneasy whine. It wasn't fear. It was something older, grief maybe, or recognition. Natalie hesitated, the badge in her pocket feeling impossibly heavy. Mia had vanished here months ago. The department's official story, gone missing during an undercover operation. But Natalie had heard the whispers, had seen the closed doors and the way even Emily's eyes went shuttered at the mention of Mia's name. She flicked on her phone, scrolling through the files on the USB again. There, tucked in a hidden folder, was a short video clip labeled simply, "Last Night." She pressed play, the screen flickering to life with a shaky image. Mia's face, pale and drawn, filled the frame. Her voice was low, almost a whisper. "If you find this, don't trust anyone. Hawk knows I'm close. Diesel's got the scent. He'll lead you home if I can't." Mia reached off camera and pulled Diesel into the shot, wrapping her arms around his neck. She spoke to him in Spanish, voice soft and aching. "Cuídate, mi chico. Good boy. If anything happens, find Emily. Find Natalie." A noise, someone off camera, a sudden crash. Mia's head whipped around, fear flashing across her features. The video cut out in a burst of static. Natalie felt her chest constrict. Diesel stared at the screen, whimpering, tail tucked. She pocketed her phone and stepped through a gap in the fence, Diesel following. The warehouse loomed ahead, windows boarded, walls tagged with graffiti, a single light blinking far above the loading dock. Her mind wandered to another abandoned place, another night. Her brother, Jacob, daring her to race him through the empty high school gym after hours. The fire alarm screaming, the smell of smoke, Jacob's hand slipping from hers. A memory she could never outrun. Inside the warehouse, the cold was sharper. Shadows moved in every corner. Natalie's flashlight beam swept over toppled crates, dust dancing in the air. Diesel stopped suddenly, nose pressed to the concrete, then darted toward a corner, pawing frantically at the floor. Natalie knelt, clearing away broken glass and old newspapers. There, a small scrap of paper taped beneath a loose tile. She peeled it free. In Mia's handwriting, "Trust Diesel. He knows." The words blurred as Natalie's eyes filled. Why did Mia believe so fiercely in this dog? Why had she risked everything to make sure Diesel survived? A sudden thud echoed through the rafters. Natalie spun, heart thumping, nothing but the wind rattling the corrugated metal. Still, her nerves were frayed. She caught Diesel's gaze, steady, calm. For a moment, she let herself breathe. They moved deeper, Diesel's nose guiding them, stopping sometimes to sniff a discarded jacket, a forgotten thermos, a muddy boot print half melted in the snow. Each clue felt like a breadcrumb, left in hope or desperation. Natalie crouched, running her gloved fingers over a patch of dried blood on the concrete. Diesel sniffed, then pressed his body close, as if shielding her from what she might find. She wondered what he remembered of that night, what he'd seen trapped in darkness, watching his handler taken from him. She sat back against a crate, the cold seeping through her coat, and closed her eyes. The images came fast, a flashback she couldn't stop. Flames licking at Jacob's bedroom door, her own hand burnt and trembling, pounding on the glass. The sound of his voice, small and scared, begging her to hurry. And then, nothing. The silence afterward, the guilt she carried into every new disaster, every fire she couldn't put out. A scraping noise jerked her awake. Diesel was pacing, hackles raised. Natalie swallowed hard, pushing the memory down. "It's okay, buddy," she whispered, forcing her voice steady. "We're together. We'll get through this." She pulled out her phone again, replaying Mia's final words. "Diesel knows. Trust him." Natalie stared at the dog, searching his face for answers. Diesel met her gaze, eyes dark and shining. He patted over, pressed his head to her knee. Silent trust, a bond deeper than words. Outside, the wind howled, slamming a loose door against its hinges. Natalie's heart pounded. "Come on, boy," she said, rising. "Let's get out of here." As they left, she tucked the note into her jacket. It was flimsy, just paper, but to her, it felt like hope. On the walk back through Crest View, Natalie watched Diesel closely. He led with purpose, stopping once to sniff the air, then pushing on, as if following a trail only he could see. At home, she knelt beside him, fingers buried in his thick fur. "You knew her better than anyone," she whispered. "If she trusted you, I do too." In the quiet, Diesel nuzzled her hand, a gentle reminder that sometimes the only way through the darkness was to trust the one beside you. As Natalie closed the blinds and locked the door, she realized she wasn't just chasing a missing detective anymore. She was facing her own past, guided by a dog whose loyalty might be the only light left in all this shadow. Dawn seeped through the frost-streaked windows, painting Natalie's kitchen in an uneasy blue. She sat hunched over the table, Diesel at her feet, the battered badge and blood-stained note spread out in front of her like clues from a nightmare she couldn't wake from. Outside, Maple Glen was slowly coming alive. Snowplows grumbling down Main Street, neighbors scraping windshields, life struggling to reclaim its rhythm. But inside, Natalie felt like she was teetering on the edge of something far darker. Diesel shifted, ears pricking as if he sensed the pulse of anxiety that ran through her. His gaze flicked to the door, then back to Natalie, insistent, almost urgent. Natalie straightened, a shiver crawling up her spine. "You want to show me something, boy?" He stood, moved to the back door, and glanced over his shoulder. Something in his posture, focused, driven, convinced her to trust him. She grabbed her service weapon, zipped her parka, and followed him out into the biting cold. Diesel led her past sleeping houses and frozen yards, paws leaving deep prints in the snow. He cut through a stand of pines behind the Carter Veterinary Clinic, moving with growing purpose. Natalie's breath came in sharp bursts, her burned hand throbbing inside her glove. The sky above was a bruised gray, the air so cold it made her teeth ache. They reached the edge of the forest, where the trees thickened, and the world seemed to shrink in on itself. Diesel paused, sniffing the air, then trotted off the main trail, winding through underbrush until they reached a small, half-collapsed cabin. The wood was warped and split by years of weather. Shutters hung loose, door askew. It was a place for secrets, Natalie thought, a place to hide or to be hidden. She crouched low, her instincts screaming caution. "Easy, Diesel," she murmured. The dog circled the cabin, nose pressed to the frozen ground, and suddenly he froze, hackles raised, tail rigid. Natalie crept after him, every sense razor sharp. Suddenly, a crash. The roof above creaked dangerously. Diesel barked, sharp, warning, just as a heavy wooden beam dropped from above. Natalie dove sideways, rolling in the snow as the beam crashed to the ground, inches from where she'd stood. Her heart hammered. Diesel stood over her, growling deep in his throat. Someone had set a trap. Natalie's pulse roared in her ears. She pushed herself up, dusted snow off her pants, and scanned the shadows. The woods seemed to press closer, the cold suddenly alive with menace. "Stay close," she whispered, patting Diesel's flank. The German shepherd pushed forward, determined. Inside, the cabin was a chaos of overturned furniture, yellowed newspapers, and a lingering stink of fear. Files littered the floor, manila folders, crime scene photos, maps of the town with certain streets marked in red. At the center was a battered duffel bag, half-zipped, full of police documents and coded messages. Natalie knelt, rifling through the evidence, adrenaline pushing aside her dread. There were photos of missing girls, handwritten lists, and a map marking the Crestview tunnels. In the bottom of the bag, she found a burner phone. Its only text: "Drop tonight. Baines knows." A chill ran through her. Deputy Chief Carter Baines, her boss, pillar of the community. She remembered Diesel's terror at the station, the way the dog's body had gone rigid near Baines. Natalie's stomach twisted. A sudden crash splintered the silence. The door slammed shut. Natalie whirled, weapon raised, just as a masked figure lunged from the shadows. Diesel leaped between them, fangs bared, launching himself at the attacker. The man swung a pipe, but Diesel's teeth found his forearm. The two crashed to the ground in a frenzy of snarls and shouts. Natalie fired a warning shot into the ceiling. "Let him go!" she yelled. The attacker kicked Diesel aside and lunged for her. Natalie sidestepped, landed a solid blow with her elbow, sending the man crashing into a table. Papers flew. The man scrambled up, blood streaming from his arm where Diesel had bitten deep. Diesel limped to Natalie's side, snarling. The attacker tried to rush past, but Natalie tripped him, wrestled him to the ground, and ripped off his mask. For a split second, she froze. He was one of Baines's men, a patrol officer she'd trusted. He spat blood, eyes wild. "You're in over your head, Brooks. Baines runs everything now. Walk away." Natalie pressed her knee into his back, cuffed him one-handed, breathing hard. Not a chance. He wriggled, but Diesel hovered, low and menacing, and the fight went out of him. Natalie found his wallet. Inside, his police ID confirmed what she'd feared. Her hand shook as she dialed Emily's number. "Emily, it's Nat. I need you. Urgent. Cabin behind the clinic. I've got evidence and a suspect. Bring your backup files. And, Emily, be careful. Baines's men are involved. It goes all the way up." Diesel whimpered, blood staining the snow near his paw. Natalie knelt, hands shaking as she pressed a wad of gauze from her kit against the wound. Diesel licked her hand, eyes soft. "You saved my life. Again," she whispered, voice cracking. Emily's voice crackled in her ear. "On my way. Nat, what if the whole department's dirty?" Natalie stared out at the dark woods. "Then we burn it down and start over. But I need you." For a moment, she let herself rest. Diesel's head in her lap, blood soaking through her jeans. She pressed her face to his neck, whispering, "Hang in there, partner." Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "You're getting too close. Back off or pay the price." Natalie's grip tightened. Let them come, she muttered. She looked down at Diesel, brave, battered, still wagging his tail. For the first time, she believed they could win. If you discovered a trusted leader was hiding a dark secret, would you risk everything to expose the truth, or would you walk away to protect yourself and those you love? Let me know in the comments below. What would you do? Natalie's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel as she sped through the heart of Maple Glen, her mind racing. Diesel rested in the back seat, bandaged and worn, his dark eyes locked on her through the rearview mirror. In her passenger seat, the battered duffel bag held damning evidence, crime scene photos, coded maps, the burner phone, and the bloody badge, everything they needed to expose the rot that had spread through the town's police force. She called Emily again. "Meet me at the station. Use the alley. Don't let anyone see you." "We can't trust anyone except each other," Emily agreed, her voice trembling but resolute. The police station looked deceptively ordinary in the early morning light, an American flag fluttering outside, the parking lot crusted with snow, windows reflecting a sleepy, small-town calm. Natalie parked on the side, heart pounding. She carried the bag under her arm, checked her weapon, then opened the back door to help Diesel out. He limped, favoring his wounded leg, but his head was high, his tail still. Emily arrived moments later, hair pulled into a tight ponytail, glasses fogged with cold. She held up a small flash drive. "I made copies. If anything happens, this goes public." They entered the station side by side, Diesel between them. The usual chatter of officers fell silent as they walked through the lobby, eyes tracking their every move, smiles too tight, voices a shade too careful. Natalie could feel suspicion crawling under her skin. Deputy Chief Carter Baines stood waiting at the end of the hall, a genial smile plastered on his face. Tall, clean-cut, and charismatic, Baines radiated the unshakable confidence of someone used to control. "Brooks! Carter! What brings you in so early?" Natalie forced a smile. "We need to talk. Privately." Baines nodded, ushering them into his office. He closed the blinds, locking the door behind them. Diesel bristled instantly, hackles raised, a guttural growl escaping his chest. Baines laughed, too casual. "Relax, we're all friends here." He gestured for them to sit, but Natalie remained standing, eyes locked on his. "We found new evidence in the Ramirez case," she said, voice hard. "We know about the Crestview tunnels, about the girls, the maps, everything. And we know someone on the inside helped cover it up." Baines's face didn't flicker. "That's a big accusation, Officer Brooks." Emily slipped the flash drive onto the desk. "We have backup files. We'll go to the state police if we have to." For a moment, the room hung in silence. Then the door burst open. Two uniformed officers stormed in, weapons drawn. Natalie reached for her gun but was tackled from behind. Her head slammed against the desk, vision swimming. Diesel lunged, snarling, but a third officer pinned him down, jabbing him with a syringe. Diesel's howl echoed down the hall, sharp and wild, before it turned into a whimper and faded to silence. Emily screamed, trying to reach for Natalie, but Baines caught her arm, twisting it behind her back. "You should have walked away, Brooks. Now you're in it, deep." Natalie fought to stay conscious as someone zip-tied her wrists. "Baines, please, you don't have to do this," she managed, blinking blood from her eyebrow. He crouched beside her, voice cold. "You were always too curious for your own good. The Ramirez girl tried the same thing. She thought her badge meant something. Now she's gone, and soon you will be too." They dragged Natalie down a back hallway. She caught a glimpse of Diesel, slumped in a cage, eyes glazed. Emily struggled as she was hauled in another direction, but managed to lock eyes with Natalie. A silent promise, unspoken words passing between them. "I'll find you." The world spun as Natalie was thrown into a storage room, door slammed and locked behind her. Darkness pressed in, interrupted only by the thin strip of light under the door. Her hands throbbed. She twisted against the zip ties, fury and helplessness coiling inside her. Down the hall, Diesel's plaintive howl echoed, raw, desperate, refusing to be silenced. Natalie bit her lip until she tasted blood. If they could break her, they could break anyone. But she wouldn't give them that satisfaction. Moments stretched. Somewhere in the building, muffled voices barked orders. Footsteps faded, then returned. The key turned in the lock. The door creaked open. Emily stood there, wild-eyed, cheeks streaked with tears but jaw set in grim determination. She held up a second flash drive, clutched so tightly her knuckles were white. "I hid in the supply closet when they grabbed you," she whispered, voice shaking. Baines doesn't know I made a backup. We have to get Diesel and get out. Together they crept down the hall, Natalie's wrists bleeding from the rough plastic. Emily found a pair of scissors, quickly snipped the ties. Natalie nearly collapsed, but adrenaline pushed her forward. They reached the kennel. Diesel lay inside, dazed but alive, ears twitching as Natalie called his name. "Come on, big guy," Natalie whispered, fumbling with the lock. Her hands shook, blood smearing the metal. Diesel stirred, slowly, and pushed his nose against the bars. Suddenly, footsteps thundered down the hall. "Hide!" Emily hissed, shoving Natalie into a janitor's closet. Diesel whimpered, pawing at the cage. Through the crack, Natalie watched as Baines and his men stormed past, searching rooms, shouting orders. Emily waited until the coast was clear, then darted to the cage, sliding the key into the lock. Diesel stumbled out, pressing himself against Natalie's side, tail wagging weakly. Sirens blared outside. "Go, now!" Emily gasped. Together, the three of them slipped through the back door into the alley, snow falling thick and silent. Natalie pressed her hand to Diesel's fur, relief and terror colliding in her chest. She looked back once, catching Baines's furious face in the window. The war had started. Natalie's feet barely touched the ground as she raced with Emily and Diesel through Maple Glen's alleyways, adrenaline pounding so loud she could barely hear the snow crunch beneath her boots. Diesel, still shaky from the drugs, tried to keep up, his breath steaming in the icy dawn. Emily clutched the flash drive to her chest, glancing over her shoulder at every shadow. They didn't speak. The world had shrunk to the sound of their running, the city sirens echoing off warehouse walls, the blood still trickling down Natalie's brow. Somewhere behind them, Baines's men scoured the streets, furious at having lost their prey. Natalie felt the pressure like a vice around her heart. If they slowed, if they faltered, it would all be over. They slipped into a deserted parking lot, ducked behind a row of dumpsters, and caught their breath. Natalie knelt and checked Diesel's eyes, whispering, "Hang in there, partner. I need you." Diesel's ears perked, and for a second she saw the old canine steel in his gaze, a reminder that they'd both survived worse nights. Emily pulled out her phone, fingers trembling. "The evidence. What do we do with it?" Natalie's mind worked fast. "We get somewhere safe. Then we go back for Mia. The files said she's being held at Crest View, underground." Emily's lips parted in shock. "That place is a death trap." "You can't." "I have to. She's alive. Mia risked everything for this. I won't leave her behind." The urgency was too great. Natalie pressed the phone to her ear and called an old contact at the state police, someone she could almost trust. "Meet us at the abandoned Mill Street lot. Bring help, quietly." She didn't wait for an answer. They had no time. A sudden roar split the dawn. The echo of an engine, headlights swinging across the lot. Baines's men had found them. Natalie swore, pulling Emily and Diesel behind a stack of pallets. Bullets ripped through the air, shattering wood and glass. "Back door!" Natalie barked. Diesel surged ahead, leading the way into a side entrance to an empty warehouse. Inside, shadows loomed, walls scorched by an old fire. Diesel paused, nose twitching, then bolted toward the far wall. Natalie and Emily followed, ducking as more bullets tore through the air. Suddenly the lights flickered on. Someone had cut the main power. The emergency exit signs glowed a sickly red. Natalie recognized the smell. Gasoline. Her blood ran cold. "It's a trap!" Emily shrieked. Flames bloomed in the darkness, licking up the walls. Natalie's pulse hammered. Diesel barked, frantic, pawing at a steel storage container near the back. Through the thick haze, Natalie spotted a keypad lock. Mia's birthday. She punched it in. The container hissed open, and inside, Diesel, with desperate urgency, began clawing at the back, exposing a crawl space. "Natalie, we have to go!" Emily cried, eyes wild with terror. "Not without Diesel!" Natalie choked on smoke as she reached in and hauled Diesel from the cage. Flames roared around them, heat searing her face. Emily coughed, eyes streaming. Diesel limped but pulled at Natalie's sleeve, leading her through the crawl space just as the ceiling above them caved with a deafening crash. They stumbled out into a back corridor, fire raging behind them, air thick with the stench of burning plastic and fear. Emily's hands shook as she guided them outside, lungs burning, hair singed. They collapsed in a heap behind a snowbank, shivering and gasping. Natalie hugged Diesel tight, tears stinging her eyes. "You did it, buddy. You saved us, again." Emily pressed the flash drive into Natalie's hand. "Here, keep it safe. I've got another backup in the car." Blue lights flashed in the distance, the state police drawn by Natalie's hurried call. For a second, hope flickered. She waved them down, shouting until her throat burned. Within minutes, uniformed officers swarmed the lot. Baines's men tried to run but were tackled and cuffed. Natalie pressed the flash drive into the hands of the lead detective, explaining everything. Mia's kidnapping, the files, the cover-up. The detective's face darkened as he listened. "We're going after Mia now," Natalie insisted, voice raw with urgency. "She's at Crest View, underground." The detective nodded, summoning backup. Natalie and Emily piled into a police SUV, Diesel curled at their feet, trembling but alive. The convoy sped through the snow, sirens off, hearts thundering. In the back seat, Natalie stroked Diesel's head, whispering, "One more time, partner. One more fight." As they approached Crest View, a chill swept through Natalie, not from the cold, but from fear. She thought of Mia, alone, drugged in the dark, and of the monsters who'd betrayed everything they were sworn to protect. Emily squeezed Natalie's hand. "We'll bring her home." The car skidded to a halt. Natalie drew her weapon. Diesel, battered and burned, stood at her side, ready. They would go into the darkness together. Night pressed like a shroud around Crest View's abandoned warehouse district, the world stilled beneath a suffocating hush. The convoy of state police sat with lights off, engines ticking in the cold. Natalie checked her weapon by habit, the metal cold against her palm, and looked to Emily, her face pale but determined under the flashing beam of a flashlight. Diesel stood between them, wounds wrapped, fur bristling, eyes sharp with the memory of fire and loss. They'd come so far, nearly broken, nearly lost, but somewhere under their feet, Mia Ramirez was waiting. Natalie's breath curled in the air. "Stay close. No mistakes." Diesel led the way to the warehouse entrance, nose low, muscles coiled. State police waited outside, weapons ready. The heavy doors groaned as they slipped inside, every step echoing through the vast, empty space. Natalie's boots crunched over shattered glass and old bloodstains. Somewhere deeper, the world changed, becoming less a building, more a labyrinth of secrets. They found the elevator shaft, doors forced open, darkness yawning beneath. Emily's hands trembled as she clipped a harness to Diesel and lowered him carefully. He landed with a grunt, shook himself and barked once, clear, urgent. Natalie followed, boots scraping the metal, her mind darting back to every fire, every loss, every promise she'd made to herself and failed to keep. This time, she wouldn't fail. The tunnel stank of mold and fear. Pipes dripped, wires snaked overhead, and the darkness felt alive. Diesel moved ahead, nose twitching, pausing at every corner. Natalie could see the shift in his body, his training, his memory, his hope. She trusted him more than she trusted herself. They passed empty rooms, each echoing with forgotten pain. Then, a sound, a muffled cry. Natalie's heart clenched. Diesel tensed, hackles up, tail rigid. He took off, paws scuffing over concrete, leading them deeper into the warren. Natalie and Emily chased him through the half-lit corridors, breath ragged, nerves sparking. At last, they reached a locked steel door. Diesel threw himself against it, teeth bared, barking with the desperate ferocity of a dog with everything to lose. From inside, a voice, raw, choked, unmistakable. "Diesel?" "Mia." Natalie's hands shook as she forced the lock. Emily beside her, hacking at the keypad with the stolen access code. The door sprang open. The scene burned into Natalie's mind. Mia, chained to a pipe, eyes swollen, skin mottled with bruises, her uniform torn and filthy. For a moment she didn't recognize them. She only saw Diesel. The German Shepherd launched himself into her lap, licking her face, whining with joy and relief. Mia sobbed, clutching Diesel, whispering his name again and again. Natalie knelt beside them, keys shaking as she unlocked the manacles. "You're safe now. We're here. I promise." Emily swept the room with her flashlight, finding two armed traffickers in the shadows. They lunged. Natalie spun, weapon raised, firing a warning shot that sent one running. The other tackled her, knocking her gun away. Diesel hurled himself into the fray, jaws clamping on the man's arm, dragging him off Natalie. Mia, dazed but furious, kicked the man's knee with a hoarse cry. He went down. Emily found the alarm panel and slammed her fist into it, short-circuiting the system. In the chaos, the corridor lights flickered, sirens echoing through the tunnels. Footsteps thundered above. Natalie hauled Mia to her feet, Diesel never leaving her side. "There's a shaft out back," Mia whispered, voice slurred from whatever they'd given her. Leads to the creek, hurry. The four raced through the winding passages, dragging the last of their strength behind them. Diesel stopped at a grate, pawed it aside, and wriggled through. Natalie followed, helping Mia, Emily behind. The icy air burned their lungs as they emerged into the snowy creek bed, hearts hammering. Behind them, a new threat. The looming figure of Baines, gun drawn, face twisted in fury. "You think you can ruin me?" he snarled. Natalie stood her ground, body shielding Mia and Emily, gun raised with trembling hands. Diesel stepped forward, teeth bared, growling so deep it rattled the air. Baines fired, bullets kicking up snow. Natalie dove, tackling Baines, the two wrestling in the ice and mud. He was strong, vicious, years of corruption behind his fists. Natalie's vision swam as she fought him. She thought she might lose, until Diesel barreled into Baines, knocking him off balance. Emily screamed, grabbing Baines's discarded weapon. She tossed it to Natalie, who aimed it at Baines's chest. Diesel pinned him, teeth at his throat. "End of the line," Natalie spat, chest heaving. State police poured down the hill, guns drawn. Baines struggled, spitting threats, but it was over. Natalie let them take him, her knees finally giving out as adrenaline crashed into exhaustion. Diesel crawled into her lap, whimpering, tail wagging weakly. Mia collapsed beside her, sobbing into Diesel's fur. For a long moment, none of them spoke, each one clinging to the battered, living proof that hope could survive even here. They handed over the evidence, hard drives, photos, the map, the burner phone, everything Mia had died 1,000 deaths to collect. The state detective looked at Natalie, nodding in grim approval. Mia, head in Natalie's lap, whispered, "I knew you'd come." Natalie stroked her hair, the truth heavy but sweet. "We don't leave our own behind. Not ever." As dawn broke, the four, Natalie, Mia, Emily, and Diesel, stood in the snow, battered but victorious, the underground darkness finally behind them. But the real work, the healing, the reckoning, was just beginning. The blizzard broke by morning, leaving Maple Glen glazed with sunlight and a hush that felt almost sacred. For the first time in months, there was no danger lurking around every corner, just the ache of exhaustion, the sting of wounds, and the slow return of hope. At the hospital, Natalie watched from a stiff plastic chair as Mia slept, an IV trailing from her arm, Diesel curled protectively by her side. News of the raid spread quickly. By noon, the town was buzzing with shock and disbelief. Carter Baines and his crew, once untouchable, were hauled into custody in front of cameras and an army of state officers. The media descended on Maple Glen like wolves, hungry for every detail. Natalie kept her head down, but it was impossible to avoid the spotlight. The files they delivered exposed the trafficking ring in harrowing detail. Names, photos, maps, payoffs, dates. Nobody could look away anymore. In the courthouse, Natalie sat at the witness table, hands trembling as she recounted everything, each betrayal, every narrow escape, the fire, the darkness underground. Emily took the stand too, voice quiet but steady. Even Diesel, stitched and limping, was called a hero in the local paper. The jury listened, jaws clenched and eyes shining, as Mia, still fragile but fierce, told her story. She described months of captivity, the fear, the nights spent talking to Diesel in the dark. "He was my only reason to hope," she told them. "He never let me give up." The verdict came down swift and merciless. Baines and his men were found guilty on every charge: conspiracy, trafficking, attempted murder, corruption. The town watched as their former leaders were led away in handcuffs, the weight of secrets finally broken. But even as the town celebrated, Natalie felt a different kind of heaviness settle in her bones. Justice had been served, but justice was never simple. The scars inside her throbbed in the quiet, reminders of how much she'd lost and how much she still carried. That night, Natalie sat on the back steps of Emily's clinic, staring at the swirl of snow drifting down. Diesel sat beside her, muzzle resting on her knee, a silent anchor. She ran her fingers through his fur, eyes stinging with unshed tears. "I keep thinking about Jacob," she whispered, the words coming from somewhere deep and raw. "If I'd been faster, if I'd been braver, maybe he'd be here." Diesel nudged her gently, pressing his nose into her hand, as if to remind her that the past could not be rewritten, but the present could be lived. Mia joined them, wrapped in a blanket, moving slowly. She sat on Natalie's other side, silent for a long time. When she finally spoke, Her voice was hoarse. You know what saved me? It wasn't hope for justice. It was knowing someone out there still cared. I stopped believing in the system a long time ago, but I never stopped believing in Diesel. Or you. Natalie swallowed, feeling the knot in her throat loosen just a bit. I almost gave up, thought maybe it would be easier to walk away. Mia shook her head. You kept going, even when it hurt. That's courage, Nat. Emily appeared in the doorway, a mug of tea warming her hands. She sat on the steps, pulling her knees to her chest, gaze gentle but steady. We're all a little broken, she said. But maybe that's why we found each other. Broken finds broken. A silence settled, a different kind this time. The kind that comes with safety, with knowing you're not alone anymore. Natalie glanced at Diesel, whose scars would always show, but who now wagged his tail with a calm, steady joy. Weeks passed. The town slowly recovered, the wounds, both physical and emotional, beginning to heal. Diesel's story became something of a legend. Local kids would visit the clinic, asking to meet the hero dog. Emily, inspired by everything they'd been through, began transforming the back lot into a small sanctuary for retired canines and rescued dogs, a place for healing not just for animals, but for people too. Natalie spent long hours there, helping build kennels, paint fences, and walk the dogs. Each day she felt her grief ease, sometimes only by inches, but always moving forward. Diesel followed her everywhere, never letting her drift too far. Mia, though still haunted, found strength in helping others, speaking at schools, comforting kids who'd lost trust in the people meant to protect them. Emily's gentle leadership and sharp mind anchored them all. Slowly, they became a new kind of family, one forged not by blood, but by survival and trust. One evening, as the sun set over the snowy hills, Natalie found herself sitting with Mia and Emily on the sanctuary's porch. Laughter bubbled up between them, hesitant at first, then warm and real. Diesel sprawled at their feet, eyes half closed, soaking up the peace he'd helped restore. Natalie looked at her friends, feeling the truth settle in her heart. We saved each other, she said quietly. Emily smiled, nodding. Sometimes the bravest thing isn't running into the fire. It's letting yourself heal when it's over. The lesson lingered in the air, unmistakable and profound. True loyalty and courage are not found in grand gestures, but in the everyday act of showing up for those who hurt. Justice isn't just a verdict in court. It's the promise of trust, of compassion, of refusing to let the broken pieces define us. As night fell, Diesel wandered into the yard, now full of other rescued dogs. Children played in the snow, their laughter ringing clear, hope returning to Maple Glen in small, ordinary moments. Natalie knew the fight wasn't over. There would always be darkness. But now she understood. No one is ever too lost to be found. Healing is possible, even after the deepest wounds. And as Diesel barked, a joyful sound that echoed across the field, Natalie finally allowed herself to believe in new beginnings. The first true day of spring arrived in Maple Glen with a softness that felt like a blessing. Sunlight spilled over the hills, melting the stubborn patches of snow and coaxing buds out of the frost-blackened ground. For the first time in what felt like years, Natalie woke to birdsong instead of sirens, to laughter echoing from the yard instead of the distant wail of ambulances. She sat up, blinked at the golden stripes of sunlight stretching across her bed, and felt something unfamiliar. Peace. Diesel was already awake, curled at the foot of the bed, tail thumping a lazy rhythm. Natalie ruffled his ears. Come on, hero, she whispered. Let's see what the day brings. He stretched, jaw cracking in a wide yawn before bounding ahead of her toward the kitchen. The sanctuary behind Emily's clinic hummed with new life. Construction dust still clung to the porch railing, but the air was filled with the playful barking of dogs and the chatter of children. Diesel trotted into the yard, his scars catching the sun, his gait easy now that wounds had healed. A group of kids gathered around, their hands gentle on his head, their eyes wide with awe and affection. Natalie joined Mia and Emily at the breakfast table on the porch. Steam curled from mugs of coffee, and plates of pancakes disappeared beneath a flurry of hands. Emily looked rested for the first time in months, her laughter light and genuine. Mia, though still moving stiffly, had a flush of color in her cheeks. She'd started to tell stories again, funny stories, the kind that made the kids giggle and forget, for a while, everything they'd lost. The sanctuary was more than a home for retired canines and strays. It was becoming a refuge for the whole town. People who'd been afraid to hope now showed up to walk dogs, plant flowers, or just sit on the porch and remember that kindness could outlast cruelty. Natalie watched the way Diesel moved among them, his body still bearing the marks of fire and violence, but his eyes clear, his spirit unbroken. The children adored him. Even the shyest kids, those who'd stopped speaking after too much loss, opened up around Diesel, reading to him, inventing games in which he was always the brave rescuer. One afternoon, a little girl named Harper, a survivor herself, sat beside Diesel in the grass, her tiny hand stroking his fur. "Did it hurt?" she asked softly, tracing one of his scars. Diesel nudged her hand, then rolled over, showing his belly. Harper giggled, and for the first time Natalie saw her smile. Mia watched from the porch, tears shining in her eyes. "He's not just a hero, he's a healer." Natalie nodded, understanding at last what had drawn her to Diesel from the beginning. He knows what it's like to be lost, and what it means to be found. Emily finished installing the last nameplate on the new entrance, Diesel's Haven, a sanctuary for second chances. Beneath it, in smaller letters, "No one is too broken to heal, no one is too lost to be found." On the sanctuary's opening day, half the town showed up. There was a ribbon cutting, cupcakes, and speeches, but it was Diesel who stole the show. The mayor knelt to shake his paw. Reporters snapped photos of him surrounded by children, tail wagging in the sunlight. Natalie noticed a few of the officers who'd once doubted her standing quietly at the edge of the crowd, their faces open, their eyes no longer shuttered with suspicion. That night, after the last visitor left, Natalie, Mia, and Emily sat together in the warm kitchen. Diesel sprawled in the doorway, a living bridge between the world of pain they'd survived and the world of hope they were building. "I used to think all I was good for was running into burning buildings," Natalie admitted. "I never imagined I could build something that lasted." Mia smiled, touching her hand. "You built this. You brought us here." Emily poured another round of coffee. "We did it together. That's how healing works." A comfortable silence settled around them. For the first time, Natalie realized she no longer felt the familiar tug of guilt or fear. She looked at Diesel, the scars along his flank, the easy way he rested his head in Harper's lap earlier, and she understood. What defined them wasn't the wounds. They would always be there. But the ways they'd chosen to live, to reach out, to risk hope. As midnight approached, Natalie walked Diesel out to the edge of the yard. The stars shone clear and close, the town lights twinkling in the valley below. Diesel sat beside her, head high, breath steaming in the cool air. "We made it, didn't we?" she whispered. Diesel nudged her hand, tail wagging. She laughed, tears prickling her eyes, but this time they were tears of gratitude. She looked back at the sanctuary, lights glowing from every window, dogs sleeping safely in their kennels, Mia and Emily's laughter drifting out into the dark. Natalie felt whole in a way she never had before, not because everything was fixed, but because she knew she could keep moving forward, no matter what. The story's journey wasn't just about solving a crime or surviving the flames. It was about what comes after, the slow, stubborn work of healing, of choosing to trust again, of letting love return, even when you've been hurt. Natalie, Mia, Emily, and Diesel had each carried wounds that nearly broke them. But together they learned, no one is too lost to be found, no one is too broken to bring light into the world. Love, loyalty, and courage, especially when born from pain, can heal the deepest scars. Sometimes the greatest act of bravery is letting yourself believe in second chances. Diesel, once abandoned and scarred, basking in the morning sun, surrounded by children's laughter. Natalie at peace, hope shining on her face. A new family, unconventional, unbreakable, gathered in the golden light of a new dawn. If you believe in the power of loyalty, second chances, and the healing bond between people and animals, like, share, and subscribe. Every story of courage can change a life.